The first story. The Bell on the Empty Road. The Bell on the Hollow Road. My name is Yukihiro Aizawa, a horror writer who investigates undocumented legends. I don't look for ghosts. I search for primal fear, something without shape, without explanation, without a name. And this time, I found it, or it found me, on a road that no map records and no language can describe. It all began when I received a parcel with no return address. Inside was a wooden wind chime with one vane broken and an old brown piece of paper with a message written in red ink. Walk through the hollow road. If you hear the bell, don't stop. If the bell goes silent, don't breathe. No explanation, no sender's name. But something in my writer's instinct told me this wasn't a prank, it was an invitation. I followed the clues and searched through old wartime military maps. At the edge of Miyazaki Prefecture, near the Takachiho Nature Reserve, there was an unnamed trail cut off by a cliff. Locals called it Hollow Road, but no one knew why. Some said it used to be an execution site during the Meiji era. Others claimed it was the boundary between this world and the next. I arrived on a day shrouded in thick fog. At the entrance stood a broken torii gate, and beneath it, words had been carved deep into the stone, then violently scratched out with something sharp. I couldn't read them. Only the traces of despair remained. I hung the wind chime on my backpack and stepped in. The moment I entered Hollow Road, the space around me shifted. Sounds warped. The wind didn't blow, yet the trees swayed as if something was tugging at them. The wind chime rang softly with every step I took, like the heartbeat of something asleep. After walking for about 15 minutes, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't leaving any footprints. The ground was soft, but completely undisturbed, as if no one had ever walked there. I tried to turn back, but behind me was a different path, wider and covered in footprints, barefoot, tiny like a child's, and they stretched on endlessly. The bell began to ring faster. I didn't stop. It felt like every chime was a warning or a countdown. I halted when I saw a lonely wooden cabin in the forest. No windows, no smoke. But the door stood open. Hanging above it were dozens of wind chimes, identical to mine, each one with a broken vane. Inside, there was nothing but an old writing desk, an oil lamp, and a stack of manuscripts. I flipped them open. I saw the story I was writing, words I had never written, but they told my story, every single detail. Then I turned to the last page. A single line read, "You are reading this ending, but the ending is not for you. The bell will fall silent. Hold your breath." At that very moment, the wind chime went silent. No wind, no sound, not even my own heartbeat reached my ears. I held my breath, not because I believed the warning, but because my body no longer obeyed me, as if I had become a character in a story being rewritten. On the wall of the cabin, my shadow was cast, but it no longer looked like me. It turned around, and it smiled. I don't remember how I left that place, but I woke up at my writing desk in my Tokyo apartment, still holding the now completely broken wind chime. I turned on my computer. The story was fully typed, but not in the font I usually use. And in the outbox, I saw a draft email already written. The recipient, an up-and-coming horror writer. Subject, an invitation you can't refuse. The second story, The White Road. My name is Jun Morikawa. I write horror stories, not born from imagination but from pursuit. I seek out, trace, and document the stories people try to forget. Legends buried in snow, in time, in suspicious silence. The last invitation I received came via an email with no sender, just a single line: go to the white road. If the snow leaves no footprints, turn back. If you can't turn back, stop thinking. I thought it was a joke, but 2 days later, I received a parcel. Inside was a map, hand-drawn, trembling lines, leading to an unnamed mountain path right on the border between Nagano and Niigata prefectures, deep in the Hida mountain range. Locals called it Shirokaido, loosely translated, the White Road. No one goes there in winter, no one goes there at all. I arrived in early February, at the peak of snow season. The mountain range looked like a dragon's spine blanketed in white mist. The wind howled like whispers you couldn't quite understand. I rented a small lodge in the village of Kyotsu, where I could see the mountaintop where the path began. The old woman who ran the lodge warned me, if you see snow not settling on you, but your body gets colder, then run. I asked why. She didn't answer, just gently shut the door. Day 1, 4:30 p.m. I began my journey. I brought a voice recorder, a chest-mounted camera, the hand-drawn map, and a wind-up flashlight. The Shirokaido path only appeared when the last light of day slanted through the pine forest. Then it looked like a thick ribbon of mist stretching into the mountains. No edges, no stones, no trees, just snow. I stepped in. The wind disappeared. The air became dense, as if the snow wasn't really snow, but frozen liquid. By the third step, I realized there were no footprints. I tried to turn back, but behind me was a completely different stretch of snow. Not where I had come from. No more forest, no more old trail, just an endless white slope. I was still recording. My voice started distorting, like someone whispering at the same time through the mic. I'm not sure this is reality anymore. It feels like I'm being reread. Day 2, time unknown. I had no idea how long I'd been walking. No sun, no clear night, just white. And worse, I couldn't feel the wind, but I could hear laughter. Very soft, very faint, as if someone was laughing inside my chest. I started seeing human shapes in the distance. Faint, still, but every time I blinked, they were a little closer. I shouted, "Is anyone there? Please!" No response, but the laughter inside me grew louder. I found a wooden sign stuck in the snow. On it, a single sentence: "You've come too far to turn back, but not far enough to forget who you are." I shivered, not from the cold, but because that exact sentence was from a short story I wrote in 2018. Impossible! I never shared it. The draft was never published, but the sign was real. Day 3, or whatever day this is, I came across a wooden cabin in the middle of the snowfield. No footprints, no sound. But a lantern inside was still glowing. I stepped in. On the table was a file folder with my name on it. Inside were hundreds of pages. Each page was a day, a moment from my life, recorded in terrifying detail. Even my thoughts in 9th grade, sitting by a classroom window, were there. And on the final page, a line written in shaky handwriting: "Keep writing. If you don't, they will do it for you." I looked at the wall. My shadow no longer moved with me. It turned around. It smiled. I don't remember how I left that cabin. All I know is I woke up in a hospital in Nagano Prefecture. The doctor said they found me at the mountain summit, wearing only a shirt, holding a bundle of soaked paper. I said my name was Jun Morikawa, a writer. They said no one by that name lived in Tokyo. No registration, no records, no published works online or in print. I asked to see the manuscript I was carrying. When they brought it in, it was just a blank notebook. I tried to tell them about the white road, about the wooden sign, the cabin. No one believed me. A few days later, they transferred me to a special observation room. I looked out the window. Snow was falling. A man stood beneath a tree, wearing a long coat, holding a hand-drawn map. He looked up at my window, and he smiled. If you're reading this story, try to remember, have you ever walked a snowy path that left no footprints? Ever felt like your shadow wasn't quite yours anymore? If you have, write it down. Write everything, or someone else will write it for you. The third story, The Forgotten Leaf Path. My name is Lucas Engel, an Austrian independent researcher specializing in medieval ruins, collapsed castles, buried monasteries. That is my passion. I don't chase legends for the romance of it. I pursue them because they often reveal holes in history. And within those voids, I find things that textbooks are afraid to write about. One evening in November, I received a letter. The paper was yellowed, the brown ink faded, and written by hand. In the Black Forest, west of Freiburg, there is an ancient trail once known as Blatt Vergessen Weg, the Leaf Forgotten Path. Come on the 13th. If the leaves don't fall, don't proceed. If you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around. No signature, but the handwriting was identical to that of my old mentor, Dr. Wilhelm Schwartz, who vanished during an expedition in the Black Forest 6 years ago. I thought, if it's real, I'll continue his work. If it's fake, at least I'll breathe the mountain air of autumn. I arrived in Freiburg on the 13th. The sky was overcast, the fog hung thick like sifted flour. No one in town had heard of the leaf-forgotten path, but an old man selling apples at the market furrowed his brow when I asked. There's an old trail with no name near what used to be a cloister. No one dares go there anymore. Those who enter don't always come back, and those who do aren't themselves. I asked, what do they say? He answered, they don't. They only smile, and there's no eyes in that smile. I began my journey at 4 p.m. Dusk approached, but the autumn light hadn't fully faded. I carried a map, flashlight, multi-tool, voice recorder, and a notebook. There were no signs marking the trail, but I recognized instantly a narrow path covered in golden brown oak leaves. Strangely, though the wind howled through the trees, not a single leaf stirred. I stepped in. The air thickened. City sounds vanished within a few dozen meters. The wind stopped, yet I heard leaves rustling beneath someone's feet. Behind me, I paused. The footsteps paused. I walked again. The sounds followed. I remembered the letter. If you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around. I didn't, but with every step, I could feel someone drawing closer. After more than an hour, night fell completely. I found a crumbling structure in the woods, the remains of an ancient monastery, Romanesque limestone walls, fractured with age. I shone my flashlight inside. Faded frescoes lined the walls, depicting strange rituals. Rows of figures in brittle leaf-shaped masks, bowing before a pitch-black tree trunk. I took notes. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye in the corner, a dusty, broken mirror. I wiped the glass. It reflected me, but behind me stood a faceless man in a monk's robe. I spun around. No one. The mirror returned to normal. I fled, but the path I came from was gone. Only a thin, deeper trail remained, one I didn't remember taking. But now, it was the only way forward. I walked deeper into the forest. My flashlight dimmed. The trees grew taller, more silent, and pressed tightly together as if I were walking inside the ribcage of a great beast. Then came the whispers, not from one person, but many, like leaves brushing together, forming words. Write, record, remember us. I opened my notebook, but every line I wrote vanished seconds later. It was as if the forest wouldn't let memory escape. I sat on a large stone to rest. When I pointed my flashlight at the surface, my blood ran cold. Carved into the stone, Lucas Engel, 1997. That's my name and my birth year. This couldn't be a gravestone, but beneath the name it read, "He came back." I trembled. I had never been here before, or perhaps I didn't remember. I grabbed my recorder to document everything, but when I played it back, I heard my own voice saying, "Don't trust your memories. You're not the first Lucas Engel. You're just the copy. The original is still writing." I threw the recorder, but the voice echoed in my head, as if the forest spoke using my voice. I ran like my life depended on it. But the forest had no path, no direction, only whispers, and fallen leaf masks underfoot, each carved with a name, Lucas Engel. I tripped, my flashlight shattered, darkness swallowed me. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, I remembered I'd been here before, 6 years ago, with Dr. Schwartz. But when I came back, I remembered nothing, because the forest never lets memories leave. I awoke the next morning in a meadow near the forest's edge. In my hand was the notebook, completely blank, except for one scribbled line on the cover, "Write again, or the forest will choose someone else." I left Freiburg feeling like I had died and been reborn. And if you're reading this, be warned. If you ever find a trail in the forest where no leaves fall and no wind blows, don't step in, because once you enter, even if you walk back out, you will never be you again. Have you ever walked down a path more terrifying than this one? If so, don't hesitate to share your story in the comments below. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next chilling video.